Imagine years of your passion and talent stolen, your brilliant ideas repackaged as someone else's. What would you do when your entire career is built on a foundation of deceit? This is the story of an architect who chose a path of calculated, public exposure to reclaim what was rightfully his. The polished glass and gleaming steel of Sterling and Thorn, a titan in modern architectural design, had always represented more than just a workplace for Julian. It was the embodiment of his life's ambition. He'd poured years, his raw, innate talent, and countless sleepless nights into the firm, driven by an unshakable belief in its ethos of innovation, integrity, and groundbreaking design. His early projects were not merely structures, but statements, drawing critical acclaim and consistently pushing the boundaries of what was thought possible in the industry. He rose steadily through the ranks, his name quietly becoming synonymous with some of the firm's most celebrated and visually stunning constructions. His mentor, a revered figure within the company whom Julian deeply respected, had often spoken of him not just as a protege, but as his natural successor, frequently whispering promises of a future at the very apex of the firm's leadership. This unspoken understanding, a silent pact of ambition, loyalty, and shared vision, felt like an unshakable foundation for his entire professional life, a meticulously crafted edifice of his own career. However, this carefully constructed world began to show cracks with the arrival of the new CEO, Arthur Hayes. Arthur was a man whose reputation for ruthless efficiency and an almost surgical approach to corporate restructuring preceded him like a cold, unsettling whisper. He moved through the firm's sprawling offices with a clinical detachment, his gaze assessing, calculating, and rarely lingering, let alone meeting anyone's directly. His vocabulary revolved around terms like streamlining operations, maximizing shareholder value, and difficult but necessary decisions that always seemed to benefit the top line at the expense of creative spirit. Julian, initially pragmatic and optimistic that his long-standing track record of innovation and significant contributions would speak for itself, soon found himself navigating a chilling new reality. The whispered promises of leadership, once a comforting refrain, now seemed to evaporate into the sterile office air. His most innovative projects, once celebrated internally and externally, were now subjected to intense, often arbitrary, scrutiny, repeatedly delayed, and sometimes even quietly, almost surreptitiously, reassigned to Arthur's hand-picked favorites, individuals whose loyalty seemed to outweigh their talent. The entire atmosphere of the firm shifted dramatically, transforming from a vibrant, collaborative hub of creativity into a fiercely competitive, almost suffocating environment. Julian felt the very ground beneath him subtly, but relentlessly, eroding, his once secure footing giving way. He watched with a growing sense of dread as respected colleagues who dared to question Arthur's often unexplained methodologies were systematically sidelined, their voices muted, their careers abruptly stalled or redirected to dead-end departments. The firm, once a shining beacon of architectural ingenuity, began to feel less like a dynamic professional home and more like an intricately designed, inescapable cage. Julian's deep-seated unease solidified into a gnawing, persistent suspicion when a new, highly anticipated, and exceptionally high-profile project, one he had not only conceptualized but had meticulously developed and refined over many months, was suddenly announced with a different lead architect. To his profound shock and growing indignation, the chosen individual was none other than Arthur's nephew, a surprisingly young and patently inexperienced man named Kevin. The announcement, delivered with an air of casual finality during a firm-wide meeting, felt less like a strategic business decision and more like a deliberate, calculated insult, a public humiliation meticulously designed to break his spirit and undermine his standing. Yet, it was not the grand gesture of reassignment that truly ignited Julian's cold, quiet resolve, but the small, almost imperceptible details that followed. He noticed, with a sharp, professional eye, that Kevin's preliminary design sketches for the project bore an unsettling, almost uncanny resemblance to his own early concepts. The similarities extended beyond mere coincidence, down to minor, idiosyncratic flourishes and unique structural interpretations that were distinct hallmarks of Julian's individual style. A seemingly casual comment from a perceptive junior architect, a new hire who perhaps hadn't yet learned the unspoken rules of silence, about accidentally seeing Julian's personal project files open on Kevin's computer during a late-night work session, sent a jolt of chilling realization through him. The scattered pieces of information, once disparate, began to click into place with an unnerving precision, painting a vivid and deeply disturbing picture of betrayal far deeper and more insidious than a simple professional slight. Driven by a cold, quiet fury that settled deep in his core, Julian embarked on a meticulous, almost obsessive, mission to gather irrefutable evidence. He leveraged his profound and detailed understanding of the firm's sprawling, often archaic digital archiving system, a labyrinthine network of old project versions and cross-referenced files, to his distinct advantage. He quietly, almost imperceptibly, accessed historical project data, cross-referencing file creation dates and modification logs. He compiled compelling screenshots of internal email exchanges that subtly hinted at his original ideas being presented as the innovative brainwaves of others. He carefully noted the subtle, yet significant shifts in project timelines that coincided with Kevin's sudden and unexpected involvement. Going a step further, he discreetly copied numerous early design iterations he had stored on a secure personal cloud account, each file meticulously timestamped and digitally signed, creating an undeniable paper trail of his intellectual ownership. The deeper he delved, the clearer and more horrifying the pattern became. This was not an isolated incident, but a systematic and deliberate appropriation of his intellectual property, a calculated theft designed with chilling precision to elevate Arthur's chosen heir while simultaneously and irrevocably sidelining Julian from his rightful place. This wasn't merely about a single, lost project. It was about the deliberate erasure of his profound contributions, the calculated undermining of his entire professional identity and legacy within the firm. The realization was a bitter, metallic pill to swallow, a profound taste of injustice. But it also served to sharpen his focus, transforming his initial anger into a meticulous, strategic resolve. He knew he needed to move with absolute precision, like an architect crafting a complex, flawless design, to ensure their inevitable downfall. Julian, now operating with the cold precision of a master chess player, understood implicitly that a direct, confrontational approach would be utterly futile. Such a move would almost certainly result in his immediate dismissal, branded as a disgruntled employee, and inflict irreparable damage to his already precarious professional reputation. His retribution needed to be subtle, meticulously precise, and, most importantly, undeniably public, yet executed without a trace of his direct involvement in the initial unveiling. He recalled an upcoming industry conference, the highly anticipated Innovate and Design Summit, a prestigious annual event where Sterling and Thorne consistently showcased their latest, most innovative, and often most audacious projects. Arthur, radiating an aura of self-importance, with Kevin hovering nervously by his side, was prominently scheduled to deliver the keynote address. Their presentation was set to unveil the firm's groundbreaking vision for the future, a vision Julian knew, with bitter certainty, was built almost entirely upon the foundation of his meticulously stolen intellectual property. Julian immediately recognized this as an unparalleled opportunity, a meticulously crafted, global stage perfectly set for his quiet, devastating unveiling. He began his subtle campaign by discreetly reaching out to a select few, deeply trusted, senior colleagues within the broader industry. These were individuals known not only for their impeccable professional integrity and keen eye for genuine design brilliance, but also for their extensive networks and influence. Many of them had followed Julian's work with admiration for years, recognizing his unique talent. He carefully avoided any direct accusations, understanding that gossip could be easily dismissed. Instead, he would casually mention, almost as an aside, a curious similarity he'd recently noticed between some of the newer designs emerging from Sterling and Thorne and certain conceptual explorations he had previously discussed and developed, sometimes even showing them a few of his old, distinct sketches with subtle, almost hidden hallmarks of his style. He planted insidious seeds of doubt, weaving subtle hints about the unusually precise timing of these new projects and the remarkably sudden, almost meteoric, rise of Arthur's previously unknown nephew into a position of creative authority. He even went so far as to accidentally leave an old, seemingly innocuous, unmarked USB drive, containing some of his highly detailed preliminary concept sketches from years prior. Each file meticulously timestamped and version-controlled, in a common, high-traffic area where a particularly observant and influential industry journalist was known to frequently pass by. A journalist with a reputation for sniffing out corporate malfeasance. Julian then receded into the background, allowing the carefully placed pieces to fall into their designated places, trusting in the natural human inclination towards curiosity and the unyielding force of professional integrity to do the work. He understood that the most powerful and irrefutable revelations often came from within the industry itself, rather than from a direct, accusatory hand. The whispers would undoubtedly begin, slowly at first, circulating like an insidious current, then gaining an unstoppable momentum as the highly anticipated conference approached, setting the stage for the inevitable. The grand conference hall buzzed with a palpable, almost electric anticipation. Hundreds of industry luminaries, aspiring architects, and an array of sharp-eyed journalists, all eager for the next big revelation in design, filled the rows. Arthur Hayes, impeccably dressed and radiating an air of self-satisfied confidence, strode purposefully onto the brightly lit stage, his figure cutting a commanding presence. Kevin, his nephew, followed a few paces behind, a nervous shadow seemingly struggling to keep pace, his youthful face a canvas of barely concealed anxiety. As Arthur launched into his meticulously prepared presentation, his voice booming with feigned authority and self-congratulation, he began to detail the innovative new direction of Sterling and Thorne. Behind him, on the giant, panoramic screens, an array of stunning, intricate slides flashed, displaying designs that were, to Julian's bitter satisfaction, eerily, unmistakably similar to his own original concepts. Every curve, every structural detail, every subtle artistic flourish was a direct echo of his countless hours of painstaking work. The audience, a sophisticated mix of seasoned industry veterans, promising young talents, and the ever-present, discerning eyes of the press, listened intently, many already sensing a familiar thread. Then, at the commencement of the highly anticipated Q&A session, a pivotal moment arrived. A veteran design critic, a formidable woman renowned throughout the industry for her incisive questions and an almost preternatural ability to expose artistic pretense, calmly stood up from her seat in the front row. Her voice, initially calm and measured, but imbued with an underlying, piercing quality, cut through the polite applause that had just faded. She began by praising the bold vision presented, a standard courtesy that made her next words even more impactful. Then, with a smooth, almost imperceptible shift in her tone, she directly asked Arthur about the striking similarities between some of the presented designs and earlier, uncredited conceptual work that had been widely attributed, albeit informally, to Julian. A palpable ripple of murmurs and low whispers went through the audience, a collective intake of breath. Another prominent journalist, subtly prompted by the accidentally discovered USB drive that had circulated quietly among the press, immediately followed up. His question was even more precise, asking pointedly about specific, highly distinctive design elements and their unusual, almost inexplicable, appearance in Kevin's relatively nascent and previously unremarkable portfolio. Arthur, caught completely off guard, visibly flustered under the sudden, intense scrutiny, stammered, attempting to deflect the questions with vague, unconvincing platitudes about creative influences and collaborative processes. He gestured dismissively, but his eyes darted nervously. Kevin, standing beside him, shifted uncomfortably, his face paling dramatically under the harsh stage lights, the weight of the lie clearly pressing down on him. The carefully planted seed of doubt, nourished by Julian's meticulous planning, had not merely blossomed, it had exploded into a full-blown, undeniable public spectacle. The questions continued, a relentless volley, each one chipping away at Arthur's meticulously constructed facade, highlighting the uncanny resemblances and the sudden, inexplicable surge of brilliance from an unproven, undeserving talent. The entire room now hummed with a different kind of energy, no longer one of admiration, but of deep suspicion and quiet, scrutinizing judgment. Julian watched from the back, a ghost in the machine, his gaze unwavering, his inner satisfaction a cold, steady flame. The grand conference hall buzzed with a palpable, almost electric anticipation. Hundreds of industry luminaries, aspiring architects, and an array of sharp-eyed journalists, all eager for the next big revelation in design, filled the rows. Arthur Hayes, impeccably dressed and radiating an air of self-satisfied confidence, strode purposefully onto the brightly lit stage, his figure cutting a commanding presence. Kevin, his nephew, followed a few paces behind, a nervous shadow seemingly struggling to keep pace, his youthful face a canvas of barely concealed anxiety. As Arthur launched into his meticulously prepared presentation, his voice booming with feigned authority and self-congratulation, he began to detail the innovative new direction of Sterling and Thorne. Behind him, on the giant, panoramic screens, an array of stunning, intricate slides flashed, displaying designs that were, to Julian's bitter satisfaction, eerily, unmistakably similar to his own original concepts. Every curve, every structural detail, every subtle artistic flourish was a direct echo of his countless hours of painstaking work. The audience, a sophisticated mix of seasoned industry veterans, promising young talents, and the ever-present, discerning eyes of the press, listened intently, many already sensing a familiar thread. The fallout from the Innovate and Design Summit was swift, brutal, and utterly devastating. The articles that emerged from the conference weren't about Sterling and Thorne's innovative future or their visionary leadership, but about the mounting, undeniable accusations of intellectual property theft and blatant corporate malfeasance. The influential design critic, true to her reputation, published a scathing op-ed that went viral within the industry, meticulously dissecting the intricate similarities between Julian's well-documented conceptual work and Kevin's new designs, presenting compelling side-by-side comparisons that left no room for doubt. Her words, precise and damning, served as an authoritative indictment. The junior architect, who had previously been too intimidated to speak out, felt emboldened by the public discourse and quietly, anonymously, provided further crucial tips to investigative journalists. These tips detailed the oppressive office culture of intimidation, the systematic marginalization of talented employees, and the blatant favoritism shown to Arthur's undeserving nephew. The financial repercussions were immediate and severe. Major clients, highly sensitive to the firm's now irreparably tarnished reputation and the profound ethical implications of intellectual theft, began to abruptly pull long-standing and highly lucrative contracts, leaving gaping holes in Sterling and Thorne's project pipeline. Investor confidence, once rock solid, plummeted dramatically as news of the scandal spread like wildfire through financial markets. The once unassailable public image of Sterling and Thorne, a beacon of design excellence, fractured beyond repair, revealing deep, festering fissures of distrust and corporate rot. Arthur, now under immense and relentless pressure from a furious board of directors, was forced to issue a series of increasingly desperate, convoluted denials, none of which held any weight against the mounting, irrefutable evidence and the overwhelming public outcry. His attempts to control the narrative were futile. The truth, once unleashed, could not be contained. Eventually, facing a complete and irreversible collapse of client relations, a spiraling stock price, and the looming threat of multiple class action lawsuits from disgruntled former employees, the board acted decisively and ruthlessly. Arthur Hayes was quietly, unceremoniously, and with a distinct lack of fanfare, removed from his position as CEO. His resignation was announced in a terse, almost apologetic press release, devoid of any praise or acknowledgement of his tenure. Kevin, whose brief, undeserved moment in the industry spotlight had now transformed into a source of profound, career-ending embarrassment and public ridicule, effectively vanished from the architectural radar. His nascent career in architectural design was over before it truly began, leaving him with a disgraced legacy. Julian, meanwhile, received an almost overwhelming influx of unsolicited offers from rival, reputable firms, some even hinting at the exciting prospect of backing him in the creation of a new, independent design studio. Recognizing his talent was now unburdened by corporate corruption. He didn't gloat, nor did he seek any public vindication. His satisfaction was a quiet, profound internal warmth, the deep, abiding peace of watching true justice unfold, not through vengeful anger or destructive violence, but through the meticulous, undeniable application of truth and the relentless pursuit of ethical accountability. He had effectively taken down a corporate Goliath, not with a physical sword or a dramatic explosion, but with a precise, meticulously drawn blueprint of carefully placed facts, reclaiming his name, his reputation, and, most importantly, his hard-won peace. The true strength of his retribution lay in its quiet, undeniable intellectual power.